I didn't feel it was just hearing her talk about that. It was great. So, my name is Chris Cannon. I'm an emergency physician at another hospital in town.
As far as everybody up here, who plans to do another Ironman down the road? Okay.
Is that next week, Patty? She did not tell anyone. She did not tell anyone. I did not see her there until the morning of the race. I'm like, wait, is that Patty? Is Patty doing this? Yeah. So.
All right, who up here would say that swimming is your strongest of the 3 disciplines? Okay.
Hey, I gotta.
Yep.
So I'm swimming in the pool with Cliff one morning. Cliff goes, "You know, it'd help if you used your legs." I'm self-taught and I'm a terrible swimmer, but I talked to Dick Hoyt, and if you guys know Dick Hoyt, he's as tough as SOB. He never uses his legs, and he pulls his son. So I thought, well, what the hell's Cliff now? But I actually have started using kick a little bit better. This guy's a great swimmer. Really.
All right, so maybe Tony would raise his hand. Who would say swimming's your weakest of the 3 sports? Okay? Weakest. Who would say biking's your strongest of the 3? Who would say biking's your weakest of the 3? And who would say running's your strongest? And who would say running's your weakest? Okay? And a couple of you guys mentioned, some of you mentioned that you ran a standalone marathon before doing Ironman. For others, was Ironman your first marathon? Anybody here? Was that the farthest you've ever run? Was that the end of an Ironman? Okay. Let's do a couple of other quick ones. Anybody get a penalty during the race? You can get penalties, and then you basically get like a red card, like in soccer. You basically got to go in a tent and sit. So it's from if you're drafting on the bike, or you're breaking any of the rules, you're passing, you're out of the lanes of traffic where you're supposed to be. There's a bunch of different things that officials on motorcycle can flag you for, and sit you down in a tent.
You gotta get caught.
Who cramped up to the point that you had to stop for a minute or two? Okay. Anybody throw up while out on the course?
I wish I would have.
All right. Who would say that there was a point during your race that you hit the wall or that you walked? Hopefully. All right. A couple other things, like if you're familiar with Ironman.com, the website, every week they spotlight someone's Ironman tattoo. So did anybody go out after the race? I know a lot of people spend a lot of money on clothing and gear. Anybody have that Ironman tattoo? One. Okay.
I got a fake one.
Okay.
That I just bought multiples of them so I could just put in the one.
Did anybody spend more money on your Ironman outfits and stuff than you did on the race entry? Shirts.
Like finisher stuff?
Yeah.
Matt, raise your hand.
All right. As far as training plans, who purchased like a training plan, like a set training plan that they followed? Did anybody purchase one from a coaching program or anything else?
I used coaches.
Okay.
But it was that I communicated with them, and they would modify it as what my schedule was doing, or if I had a race coming up I wanted to do, they would modify the training according to that. So
okay.
I'm a big fan of that.
Who had a plan that they followed to get their miles in, to get their workouts in? Kind of something written down on paper, months out, weeks out, that they followed. Okay? And who kind of winged it? All right. Let's just go down the list. What a lot of times, what gets you through the hard times, which you hear people talk about, Tony mentioned it too, that you do a lot of training by yourself and you're out there. You got a lot of time inside your own head. Whether it's training or race day, did any of you guys, and we'll start down with Matt, did you have that one thing, a mantra, something that you repeat in your head that when the going got rough, whether it's a bad training day, you got a lot of miles in front of you, or on race day, what was that one thing maybe that you had in your head that made you keep going, that had you keep going?
Surprisingly, I did not have one.
Okay.
Just determination, I guess.
Okay. Scott?
I actually had two. The fact that my parents, my mom and my son and daughter thought I was going to die. And then my fiance Desiree had given me a silver thing to put on my road ID. It's encouraged. So I had to look at that a few times to gather myself.
And I actually did, I didn't ever read this Sister Mary, or her book till after the race, which was really fun to read after. But the name of it was The Grace to Race. And I honestly kept praying that. I was like, I need the grace to race this. Because the bike and all would make me so nervous with the tire idea and all that. So I was very thankful. So that was what I kept thinking.
I had two mantras. The first half of the day was embrace the sun. The second half was just don't cry. Embrace the sun. I have two little boys, and so I always tell them don't give up on anything. That was my driving force. So that I would get to the race and say I can't go on, I can't finish this. To look at them and say, well, you shouldn't quit, but I should quit. So didn't do that. It's a related story. A professional over there was talking to my dad randomly. My dad said that one of my son's first Ironman, he gave him this bracelet, this red little rubber bracelet, and DFS on it. And I know what that meant. It means don't drink and stop. This professional gave it to me, so I wore it. So I started looking down, I was like, and once you stop, it was like, yeah.
I don't really have a saying for myself. It's not really repeatable. But no, basically my motivation was just, try to get that 10 hours.
Like Tony said, I'm very, well, he didn't say this, but I'm very slow. And so even though my sister was there, we would start out the day together, but I spent most of the day by myself. And I had way too much alone time because it was miserable. Literally, I cried more during training for Ironman than I have my whole entire life. I was out at mile 90 training and I started crying. I couldn't stop. I was eating lunch with the teachers one day and I just started crying. I couldn't stop. I'm like, oh, I was a nutcase. But
Totally worth it.
I just knew that, for one, every single person I knew that I had signed up for this race. All of my students knew this, and I'm like, there were so many people that I told that I didn't want to let anyone down, and I just prayed like you could not pray anymore. The whole entire training, the day of the race, oh my gosh, I prayed. I remember biking on the loop, and everyone had flat tires. I'm like, dear God, please don't let me have flat tires. I won't be able to fix it. Then I started crying again. So yeah, but yeah, I just kept praying. That's all I did.
During the training runs, I was just thinking, I was like, this is just what is it gonna feel like when I cross that finish line? That's what I kept thinking to myself. And then during the race, I'm like, you did not spend all that time training to give up now. So just push on.
Well, I had an Ozzy Osbourne song that I played over and over in my head again. I don't want to stop. I put it on my ID thing, so I had that the whole time. And like Cliff, I never ever, throughout my entire training, I never thought that I wouldn't finish. I always, and when I would do a hard training run, that would be one of the things that I would visualize in my head was me coming across the finish line. And it's kind of hard for me to talk about because it was probably one of the biggest events I've done. And when I came across, I don't really remember coming across, but I saw a photo and it was exactly what I saw every time I ran. It was when you hold my hands up and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So for me, it was just cool. And my whole family was there. I have a family that's not very active, but it inspired my brother to run a half marathon, my sister to run a half marathon, and honestly, these people, between the two of them, lost about 220 pounds between the two of them, so 100 pounds plus. So it's kind of cool, really cool.
Okay. If you guys had to say, when training got heavy, about how many hours a week were you guys training leading up to Ironman? We'll set over here 20.
Yeah, 20, 25.
Well, according to Jeff, I was training too much, but it's just because I was so slow. I think I got up to 37.
Do you know your mileage? I think you did in the blog.
Yeah, my sister and I had a blog, and so we blog we had distance. I don't have it memorized. I know that there was weeks that we were doing 37 to 40.
Okay.
I would somewhere around 20.
2025.
I got in the pool once. Or I said I got in the pool once.
Oh, yeah.
Or was that the river? Did you do a river swim?
Yeah, she did river.
Patty, tell about the butterfly, the swimming the butterfly laps.
Oh, that's sweet. One thing I did try to do in the pool, leading really up to it, for some reason in my mind I wanted to do, fly for me is the hardest stroke, and I think really it's a good workout. And I just in my mind was going to do 100 lengths of fly. So I did that, and I would do that like every month. And so I don't know, that I think mentally helped me. I mean, it's not like I stopped at the wall and rested, 5 seconds, go again. I mean, it took maybe an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, so that's good enough for a swimmer. Jeez. Anyway, so I think that mentally that was very, very helpful for me. That cardio, was building up by doing the fly. And then the other thing I did do before I signed up is I wanted to make sure I could do, I did 150 lengths in the pool, which was probably 2.4. And I was like, well, that with the flip turns is kind of maybe like the wave, so I think I got this one down.
I was about 20, 25 out.
Probably 25.
Okay. All right, a couple more rapid fire ones, guys, just to give everyone a feel. Who during your event rode a specific triathlon bike? For those that don't know, there's a bike that's a triathlon bike. It's set up a little bit aerodynamically. It's a little different than a road bike that people would go out on the road ride. So who rode a tri-specific bike? Okay, who rode a road bike with maybe aero bars or just a road bike? Okay. Anybody have an aero helmet on the race day? Okay. Anybody not wear socks while they were riding? Okay. Anybody not wear socks while they were running? Okay. If you had to say, what's one thing during your race day that you that you weren't prepared for, that you didn't prepare for happening, or what's the one thing that you would do differently now that you know that you've gone through it? We'll start down with Matt again.
Well, I think the worst thing that happened to me was about mile 8 of the run. Either calf would start cramping to the point where I'd have to stop and stretch it and walk it just a little bit and start running again. That was probably the worst thing that happened to me. Also on the bike, special needs halfway point. I stopped there. I had to go to the bathroom for the first time for the whole day. I stopped there and slammed down some food really quick. Probably stayed too long there. I probably would have stopped, gone a little faster. For guys, transition time, I've tried to. You need protection on your chest, and after you come off the bike, it doesn't stick too well. So I ended up with a Band-Aid down here and here at the end. So, but I didn't have any trouble with that. So, I took plenty of sodium and Virolite tablets, probably 40 to 45 that day, and I still cramped. So something was missing, probably calcium.
I wasn't prepared for the battle royal in the water. I got kicked and hit more times than I thought I would. And I've done quite a few triathlons. Nobody knocked my goggles off. So probably being better prepared for that. I mean, hard enough right now to do it for a couple of times.
I couldn't think of really anything, but one thing I found was very helpful was that I had 2 pairs of bike shoes on. I was so glad I did that, and that I changed, to my change clothes each time. That was very important. And probably the one thing that I think helped me a lot was that I read it's really important to try not to get your heart rate elevated for very long at a time, and it changes your body chemistry and different things in your blood. So, I mean, obviously when you're biking up the hill, you're going to have to, but I always tried to kind of, since I wasn't going for a Kona like you were, I did try to kind of just stay in a comfortable, but try to click the pace, but not, I think that really did